Hey, I'm Blair Best, and tonight on The Story, we begin in deep southeast Portland, outside this former retirement home. Plans for this building are to turn it into a residential treatment facility, but it's right next door to an elementary school, causing major concern among parents. It's our big story tonight. At this point, one thing is clear. The need for drug treatment in Portland is real, but the question remains, where to put it.
It's been quite a long process.
Billy Anderson runs City Detox. He's been trying to open a new treatment center for the past year.
What we're hoping to create is a safe place for people to go, withdrawal management only, and we're looking to do 20 beds.
After looking at more than 100 locations, he settled on this former retirement home off Southeast Holgate Boulevard, right next door to Gilbert Heights Elementary School.
Believe me, it wasn't our first choice.
It was the only choice, Billy says, that met the state's strict requirements for running this type of business.
It's all due to, the way that substance use treatment restrictions are. The rooms have to be certain dimensions. We have to have a certain amount of bathrooms. We have to have a certain amount of sinks and so on and so forth.
And the initial reaction is just shock, concern.
Aaron Hwynn's 8-year-old son goes to the neighboring school.
It's just such the short amount of time that we had to react and research and even make a decision.
A city spokesperson tells KGW they mailed a notice to property owners within 150 feet of the proposed detox center.
Obviously, our school spans a lot further than that. I'm about a mile away myself, so I didn't receive the notice, and none of the other parents that I'm close with did either.
Aaron started a petition urging Portland officials to reject the site proposal. At last check, it had more than 500 signatures.
It literally shares a fence line with our playground that our kids see at recess. It's on full display if any incidents were to occur.
The message behind it is great, Yeah, they want to help people out. They want to do a detox place for people. But I don't think it'd be the best thing for kids to be seeing, adults struggling.
I totally understand that. As a parent, I'm a parent of 2 elementary school children myself, so I understand their concern wholeheartedly.
Billy says the site, if approved, will be appointment only, meaning no walk-ins allowed. Security measures include patient background checks, dozens of cameras, and locked doors.
We're going to operate from a standpoint of community safety.
Access systems, background checks, security cameras, they help, but they can't mitigate all risk. I've seen it happen firsthand.
For Aaron, it's deeper than just community impact.
It's hard because I'm really sympathetic to the cause, but I've tried really, really hard to protect my kid from seeing those types of things, like some of the things I had to see growing up. But I'm just really hoping it doesn't get swept up in this broader conversation of not in my backyard. We're not some neighborhood in the Pearl District that's trying to protect the income of our surrounding businesses. These are affecting our kids.
All I can do is just present this as best as I can of what we're going to accomplish. If we get up and running, I just hope that we become allies to that neighborhood rather than, opposition.
Now, this situation continues to unfold in real time. Just a few hours ago, a spokesperson for the City of Portland's Permitting and Development team tells me they recently learned of a new state law, House Bill 2005, that went into effect July 24th. It requires cities to allow treatment facilities in residential zones, and it does not provide any exception if the detox center is next to a school. This proposed site is in a residential zone. The city's permitting and development team is now emailing each person who wrote to them with concerns about the planned site. The city no longer gets a say and the project can move forward. Before this new law, it was going to be up to the city to approve or deny the site by early December. The building still has to go through renovations, though, which Billy tells me will take time. He texted me tonight saying, "We do not take the decision to approve City Detox lightly. We are committed to safety of all in the neighborhood and look forward to being able to offer the care Portland so desperately needs." Now, as for the mother I talked with, Erin, she says if the project were to move forward, which it sounds like it is, she's not waiting to see what happens. Instead, she plans on pulling her son from the school. She also tells me tonight she's trying to see if she can get the courts involved and appeal this decision. Okay, talk to us. What's going through your mind? Are you for or against this center opening? What about those strict state requirements making it hard for people like Billy to find a place to do this type of work in the first place? Email us at thestory@kgw.com or call and leave us a voicemail, 503-226-5090. The city-run homeless shelter in the Pearl District that's drawn a lot of backlash from people in the neighborhood is opening tonight at 8. That's in less than 2 hours. It'll be run by the Salvation Army. Tonight, it'll have beds for 40 people, but eventually there'll be space for up to 200. Now, a lot of people in the neighborhood say they're concerned about drug use and vandalism around the building. Today, Celine Stevens got a look inside the shelter and heard from the city and the Salvation Army on how they plan to address security. So first, Celine, what's it looking like inside and how's the shelter going to be run?
Blair, well, right now it's mostly single beds. However, as capacity increases, we can expect to see bunk beds and overflow space utilized. Now, this isn't a place to get a full meal or to take a shower. However, they say they will be providing snacks to people. In terms of belongings, there will also be some overflow space that can be used for that. However, it's not a lot, and they're asking people to generally just bring what they can fit under their bed. People will have to leave at 6 a.m., but the city says there will be outreach workers available to help out.
I know that's a big concern for neighbors. Once people leave at 6 a.m., where do they go during the day? We know the closest city-run day center that's opening is in Old Town, which is several blocks away. But let's talk about the security situation. The Salvation Army says anyone can come as long as they, quote, stay safe. So what does that mean, and who is providing security?
So there's no actual security on site. Staff members are trained with de-escalation techniques, and the staff ratio is 1-20. However, obviously, if things do escalate beyond that, then first responders will have to be called. There's also no metal detectors, as this is a low-barrier shelter, and here's why.
And so low-barrier shelters provide that access for anybody that's coming into the door, just like we would expect any service out there. If people are able to behave in a way that is safe for themselves and for others on site and the staff, then they're allowed to have access. Just like as if you would not go into a grocery store, people aren't going to ask you for your ID documentation or what's in your pockets and things like that. And so just in the same way that we provide public services to everybody else, we want to do the same here. So if behavior exceeds that, or they're unsafe for themselves medically or for other reasons, then we will address those needs at the time of service.
Okay, Celine, we know some people in the neighborhood are pretty upset about this shelter, even going so far as to spray graffiti on the side of it yesterday. So talk to us about how the city is addressing all of the neighbors' concerns.
So the city admits it's not going to be perfect, but they're describing it as a humanitarian crisis and that something has to be done. They say it's safer for everyone if people can sleep inside versus on the streets. Now, they also say they're committed to continuing dialogue with the neighborhood and want to hear from people. Now, the city will be managing the 1,000-foot engagement area outside the shelter to address issues like trash and vandalism. They say that graffiti incident is actually a good example of their quick response.
We received reports of graffiti over the weekend, and we rapidly deployed city teams to get those cleaned up. And as I think you saw as you came up, that has been cleaned up, and that's the same service that the neighborhood can expect. So if we see graffiti within the 1,000-foot zone, if it's brought to our attention, we're going to address it as quickly as possible.
Okay, Celine Stevens in Northwest Portland for us tonight. Celine, thank you. Well, turning now to an update tonight on the special legislative session to decide how to fund the Oregon Department of Transportation and prevent hundreds of layoffs. Just about 30 minutes ago, we learned a Senate vote on the proposed bill is going to be delayed for more than 2 weeks. Yesterday, it passed in the House. Senate Majority Leader Case Jama announced that since another Democratic Senator, Chris Gorsuch, is sick, they're going to delay the Senate vote until September 17th. That is 2 days after ODOT layoffs are set to begin. Senator Gorsuch is recovering from complications from a medical procedure. And since Democrats need every single Democratic vote to pass the transportation bill they want, they need to wait until he's there. Now, Governor Tina Kotek just sent out a statement in the last few minutes here saying she's directing ODOT not to begin the layoffs until October 15th because she thinks they'll pass the bill once they're all back together, writing, "I am making a good faith assessment with the assurances of Senate leaders that the bill passed by the House on Monday will pass when the Senate reconvenes." She wished Senator Gorsuch well and also sent a message to Republicans, writing, "I would also like to thank the Senate Republicans for their professionalism while one of their colleagues is recovering." So far, we haven't heard from Senate Republicans. Well, some Portland city councilors are heading to Vienna, Austria this week for a work trip on taxpayers' dime. The trip is to study social housing. 60% of Vienna's population lives in social housing. That's housing owned and operated by government or nonprofits rather than developers and property managers, and where rents are set at an affordable rate. Well, today, I sat down with Councilor Candace Avalos, one of the councilors going on this trip.
So we're not planning the trip. We are joining with a bunch of other civic leaders who want to learn more about Vienna's social housing program. They are known worldwide for their social housing. This is an opportunity for us to see it in person and really experience the things that are hard. When you read it on paper, it's one thing. When you can see it and talk to the leaders and talk to the people that, the residents that are experiencing it, to just better understand how they implement it as local government.
Councilors Jamie Dunphy and Mitch Green are joining her, along with their chiefs of staff and 3 people from the Portland Housing Bureau. There are also non-city employees going on the trip. In total, Councilor Avalos tells me about 20 people are flying to Vienna this week. Now, I know what you might be thinking because you've told us. We've received several emails recently asking why councilors need to go so far away to study affordable housing solutions. Now, as for how much taxpayer dollars this is going to cost, Councilor Avalos did not know off the top of her head, and a spokesperson for her office said they can't speak to questions about the cost.
You said it yourself, Vienna is very different than Portland. Why go somewhere so far away that's so different to try and learn strategies to bring back home?
Yeah. I always joke about this, and I've actually talked to a lot of leaders about this, that sometimes we just get really stuck in our ways because we don't open our minds to other opportunities.
A lot of people don't see this as a good use of money. What do you have to say to that?
I disagree. At the end of the day, we have budgets and we have discretion over them, and I use my budget as a way to enhance my work. I see this as doing exactly that. I'm not going on vacation. I'm going on a study trip to learn about a policy area that I think is important to Portlanders. So I understand how that might feel and look for people. I stand by my justification that this is an opportunity for us to expand what we know and make sure to apply good best practices in Portland, and that costs money sometimes.
Now, this trip comes after Councilors Avalos, Green, and Dunphy presented a resolution back in March to study bringing social housing to Portland. That resolution passed unanimously in April, and it directs the city administrator to deliver a report on social housing by May of next year. Right now, most housing in Portland is dependent on private developers. Because of that, and the rising cost to build, the price of rent fluctuates with the market. Councilor Avalos believes social housing could keep housing in Portland affordable.
This is, the number one thing we talk about is the lack of affordability and the fact that we're seeing that in our unsheltered homeless population. So it feels urgent.
The councilors and other city staffers leave for Vienna Friday, and they will be gone for about a week. Important to note, though, this is not the first time someone from the city of Portland has gone to Vienna to study social housing. The director of the Portland Housing Bureau already spent 2 years in Vienna for this exact reason. But apparently 2 years was not enough time to gather that information. When the councilors return, they're going to a local housing conference where they will talk about what they learned in Vienna. They're also going to create a report based on what they learned.
It's like class, we're going to be learning, hearing from a bunch of different presenters all day, going to visit some sites, but a lot of it is going to be them bringing leaders to us to teach us these different concepts.
Okay, now we want to hear from you. Do you agree with this work trip to Vienna? Do you think it's a good use of taxpayer dollars? Why or why not? Email us at thestory@kgw.com or call and leave us a voicemail, 503-226-5090. Well, still ahead on the story, after investigators found out Immigration and Customs Enforcement was using Washington state records to track people down, which is against the law, advocates now say all of Washington's agencies need to get a closer look, what they're demanding when the story returns. Human rights advocates are demanding an audit of all Washington state agencies after investigators at our sister station in Seattle revealed Washington's Department of Licensing was sharing data with ICE for deportation purposes. In Washington, that's against the law. Kristen Goodwillie has reaction from lawmakers and advocates.
Get out. Advocates and lawmakers say this is the kind of scene the state should have no part of. Federal ICE agents arresting undocumented residents with the help of the state of Washington.
At the end of the day, this impacts us all.
Malou Chavez with the Northwest Immigrant Rights Project says it's not just the Department of Licensing, but every state agency needs to prove they aren't inadvertently helping federal agents track down and arrest undocumented residents.
We are asking for an audit of all systems because we have also seen that data shared with federal government agencies for health care purposes is also being used.
Last month, King 5 exposed the Department of Licensing, or DOL, has data sharing agreements with several Homeland Security agencies, including ICE. In the deals, the feds promised not to use the state's information for immigration enforcement. But since Trump's election in November, we found the federal agencies are searching this a lot more often, up 188%.
In that first story, DOL assured King 5 ICE was not misusing state data. Well, last week, I brought them proof.
Federal court documents show in May, ICE officers ran a query of Washington State Department of Licensing records for the purpose of identifying and detaining an undocumented Kirkland man.
I'm very concerned because this is explicitly what the Department of Licensing said it wasn't doing, and now we see that it is. I think the focus needs to be on the government agencies. To the extent that they are betraying the public trust, they need to be held accountable for that.
After King 5 provided evidence, DOL and the governor's office shut down ICE's access to the state database right away.
This is all happening to do what? What is the purpose?
Washington state agencies aren't supposed to share private data with the federal government for immigration enforcement. It's against state law. The Keep Washington Working Act prohibits this kind of collaboration unless there's a judicial warrant or a criminal investigation, not related to immigration. Senator Wellman sponsored the 2019 bill.
Of course, I'm disappointed, and I really do believe that we all need to be very much aware that this is going on and to maybe think twice. Ask more probing questions about how information is going to be used.
Wellman says she reached out to the Department of Licensing after my first investigation in July and plans to do so again.
I'm going to follow up on this one with direct contact with the director of the Department of Licensing. And I know the AG is as well.
Another result of our investigation, One America human rights organization is holding a press conference and rally next month to urge officials to better protect Washington citizens and information.
But when we come back, we're going to talk about sports, but probably one you've never heard of, pigeon racing, how it works and where it's getting more popular. Let's do something a little different now and talk about pigeons. We usually see them as pests, hanging around the city, trying to get scraps of food. But in Idaho, they're champions of sport, racing pigeons. Yeah, you heard that right. They're bred for speed, trained for distance, and valued for their homing instinct. As Hunter Funk reports, the sport is growing more and more popular.
Long before text messages and email, there were wings.
Come on.
Pigeons once carried words across the world.
For you to be able to send me a message, you would actually have to have one of my pigeons. And so if you had one of mine, and it's like they had them during the war, and they used them to send messages out. And what they would have is they would have a main loft somewhere, and they would take, how many ever birds with them that they could carry safely. And then they would turn those loose with the messages, and they would fly back to wherever that spot was.
But today in the Treasure Valley, they carry a different task, one that requires speed.
We fly races anywhere from 100 to 500 miles.
It's called pigeon racing.
I'm just now getting these loft trained to fly around.
And to understand it, we went to John Stockwell.
This is the clock that I use. It's actually hooked up to a couple of antennas out here on the landing board, and I'll just set it, and at least for training, and now it's ready to go for training, so I'll be able to know when they come in. We do something very similar when we do for races. We set it up and then we can track them.
Pigeon racing isn't new.
Pigeon racing in and of itself has been going on since the early 1800s.
In fact, clubs in Idaho trace back to the early 1970s. But to know about it takes knowing someone who does it. John picked it up as a teen, set it down for a while, then took it back up again nearly a decade ago. The sport works like this.
Load up.
Birds are loaded into
Load
crates.
Up. Come on, load up.
Driven miles away, then released all at once. The pigeons race back to their home loft. The first to arrive is the winner.
There's electronic RFID chips that are on each of the bird's leg. And they clock in on the system, and then we can take that and we upload all that into the computer, onto the internet, and we're able to calculate speeds based on the distance. We have the exact GPS coordinates of where they're released from, and we base it on yards per minute.
Training begins close, a few miles down the road.
As young birds, I'll put them on the landing board here. I get them used to trapping in and out and going in, and then they get used to loft flying here. And once they've done that, they actually do, after a time, they do what they call routing, which is that they'll actually let them out and they'll just take off and disappear for an hour at a time. And that's just them out trying to see what's going on in the world.
Then the distance expands, 20, 50, 100 miles away. Each release teaching them one thing: find the loft and never forget it.
I want my birds to fly 45 minutes to an hour, sometimes an hour and a half a day, depending on where I'm going and how far I'm trying to get them trained out.
Behind it all, though, is care. John mixes specialized feed, even checks the air quality before releasing the birds.
We get a lot of smoke and a lot of fires here in the valley, usually in the fall. We're trying to train out our birds, and I'm not going to waste and hurt my birds with bad smoke and bad air quality.
Idaho's Combine has about 30 members. Some are brand new young adults and families, finding the same fascination John once did.
My goal is I will give people birds if it will make sense and if it can help them get started. I just want to see more people get into the sport and to just enjoy it.
And like the birds themselves, the joy in pigeon racing always circles back.
I mean, I like to win. I don't win them all. It's just the way it is. But, there's days, there's been races where I've actually rooted for somebody else to win because I'd rather they win. It's all part of, it's all part of the fun.
Well, that is the end of our show, folks. Thanks so much for watching. The good stuff is coming your way next. And don't forget, everyone has a story to tell. If you ever miss an episode of The Story at 6:30, we re-air it at 8:30 and 10:30 on our TV app, KGW+, which you can get for free right now on Roku, Apple TV, and Fire TV. In the meantime, have a great Tuesday night. I'll see you right back here tomorrow night at 6:30.